Trying so hard not to play Poe. Um, I really don't want to, but I feel the urge to. It really is like smoking, or I should say, what people describe quitting smoking is like, because I smoked for like a couple years and then I just quit one day, mainly because, and it was a petty reason. It's like my fingers didn't smell good. I would like scratch my face like, yeah, it doesn't smell nice. So I quit. Also, when I initially started smoking, I was smoking cloves, because I was one of those golf kids, and they 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 raised the price on them, and that was fine. We were actually doing okay then, and then they changed the formula, and it was like it didn't taste as good, and also something else happened. I can't remember what, but basically, I just decided to quit, and it wasn't super hard for me. Like, I have a brain that doesn't get super addicted, I guess, uh, except to food and games, apparently, you know? So, um, I just quit smoking. But Poe, man, it's really, I like have a lot of sympathy now for like gambling addicts and stuff, because I feel like there's a linkage there. Like, I'm looking at the games in my library, right, in my Steam library, and there's a lot that are unplayed because I used to do a lot of Steam gifts. Like, I would buy a Humble Bundle, right, and then I would get all these games that I'm never going to play, so I would give them away on Steam gifts, and then I would join uh, other gift campaigns. So basically, I would, like, in a very loose way, trade unused games. But the way that works is, you end up with a bunch of spare keys, basically. And so I've got all these games that I've never even played, and so I'm looking at trying to replace Poe with something less toxic, something offline, something I can mod, something that isn't directly benefiting really just awful company and personal practice. Um, and the reason I go there from gambling addiction is, like, obviously gambling, like, let's say you're a poker addict, that's not about cards. You can't replace that with an offline card game. What matters to you about it is the money. It's the game, but it's also this element of reality. I mean, it's hard to get more real than money, right? So your your reward circuits are conditioned such that the game becomes more than a game. It's like it's a reflection of reality, and it's like it's important, and it has real meaning. And Poe has managed to do that to me, not for money, but for like, I have a guild, and I have people in it, and two things happened recently that have really nudged me away and kind of triggered a shift in how I phrase it in the context I'm about to explain is excuse me, a bridge too far. Um, there's this little Survivors type clone game called Path of Survivors, and it's obviously a mashup of Path of Exile and Vampire Survivors. Now, first note, I don't see Vampire Survivors suing them out of existence for basically being the same thing. It's a little guy on a screen and he automatically shoots. That's a whole genre now. They call them bullet heavens. Okay? I don't see that guy going around with his lawyer sending DCMA notices to everybody. You can tell where I'm going with this, can't you? Path of Exile, in their infinite douchebaggery greed, sent this kid a fucking DCMA. Quit making your little $3 game because it has our skill tree in it. It's not even the same nodes. Some of them are, because it's like it's kind of nice as a Poe player to be like, oh, I know where Man of Steel is. It's down here, right? They just destroyed the game. They sent him a letter, and they're Tencent now, so that's $500 billion a year. When Gigacorp sends you a hate mail and you're like nobody. You do what they say because you don't want your life destroyed. It's like the most disgusting act of bullying. Oh, it's so awful. And so now every time I go to launch Poe, it's like somebody, cigarette analogy again. It's like somebody peed all over my cigarette. It's like finding out that you laid your jacket on your carton and your cat peed on your jacket. So now all your cigarettes are soaked. And you're like, well, I can't smoke that, you know? But it's also an opportunity because you're like, well, I needed to quit anyway. We'll just say that was my last carton. Throw them away. Begin my effort to quit, right? So that's kind of what's happening here. When GGG took a massive hateful dump on Path of Survivors, I was just like, man, all right, that's it. I mean, I've already got a negative review. It's all about like their FOMO and their gambling loot crate shit. And I mean, it really is a disgusting ecosystem. They want you to pay now, and the core packs are now fucking updated yearly. Like they want $4,000 a year from some people, and they're probably getting it too. And that's part of the problem. It's like this guy wanted $3 for an entire game. They want $30 for a set of boots. A single 3D asset spinning, moving occasionally. It's just, the greed is unimaginable. I've been relatively frugal as a Poe player. Like I've only got like 6 or 7 packs over 10 years or something. I probably have spent just enough to qualify for the open beta for Poe 2 over 10 years. That's not exactly irresponsible, crazy spending, especially since most of that spending occurred when our money situation was a lot better. I haven't given them money in probably a year or something. But that just was, and then, so I talk about it in my guild chat. And I have kind of how I populated my guild was basically whenever someone was nice, whenever someone went just a little bit above and beyond what I would consider a default Poe community practice, when they what's that word? There's a word for like when you're receiving a medal, it's like excellence above and beyond or whatever. There's a specific word. I can't think of it. But when they stood out as nice, I'd send them a message. I'd say, I collect nice people. Would you like to join my guild? Do you have one? And a lot of people will accept because by default, they don't have one. And there's advantages, it's like the guild has tabs and stuff. And it's like, it's just polite. I mean, if I'm aiming it at nice people are going to be nice in return a lot of the time. So I ended up with a small guild. But mean people can have nice moments. So, and also, and this is going to be the meat of the video and really the complexity of the topic is, because this just spider webs into everything. It's like I always rant and ramble and go off on tangents, and this is definitely going to be one of those videos because I'll end up with people who were nice at the time but are generally kind of mean or very different from me. And normally that's an asset. There's strength in diversity, and I love the fact that my guild of like 40 or so people, 80 including turnover, had probably something like 12 to 15, maybe more countries represented. I mean, I used to have a list and now I can't even rattle it off. I mean, it's like all the European countries, basically every country, I know there's 200 on the planet or more, but I'm just saying it's like a lot of people. Really the only people, like the only region of the planet I'm missing is like, of course, the Arctic and Antarctica and, China, because, and the whole Asian area, because that's Tencent's territory. That's why they bought Poe. 80% controlling interest, so whatever the little New Zealand fiefdom does now is completely at their mercy. So anyway, I've got the highly diverse guild, and there are people in there that I don't entirely agree with, and that's usually fine. But I ended up with one, and the specifics of that particular encounter aren't super relevant. They were triggered by this uh, path of survivors thing, because he started defending the Gigacorp, and I'm just like, that right there is a trigger for other things, because it's like I see that all the time, and it's really the reason the world is shitty. You see people defending these institutions as if they're their friend. And I'm reminded of the modern thing that's happening. It's like you'll have brands online will have a Twitter account, and the Twitter account will attempt to be edgy and personal, and it will genuinely create a sense of friendship in people as if you're friends with Wendy's. The Wendy's Twitter account is the one that they make memes of, because it's like a snarky, funny account, and it makes me laugh sometimes. But then people being people, they're tribal, and they bond. We can pair bond with anything. We can pair bond with a rock, literally pet rock. Remember that? That's because people can bond with anything. And again, normally that's an advantage, but it can be exploited, and the corporations have exploited it. So, like, as ridiculous and openly, obviously ridiculous as it is to imagine somebody defending a corporate Twitter account as if it's a person, not a team, as if it's genuine and not orchestrated, you have a much more insidious version where people will defend ideological talking points that were generated by think tanks that were funded by corporations. So those steps of remove create a sense of authenticity and legitimacy in the ideas. Sometimes these people actually think that they aren't even introduced ideas. They came from them, they think. Because the best way to manipulate somebody is to make them think that your idea was their idea. And then they'll defend it because it's their own. It's ego, narcissism. It's like, oh, I have to back it now because it's mine. And so you can't explain that in a pithy, quick way. You just have to. So that's part of the complexity here, is like, how do you handle that? And the answer is you basically can't, which is why propaganda is so effective, why corporate PR rules the world, why corporations in the West, in America in particular, were able to straight up hollow out and replace the government. How I put it in a tweet one time was the Western civilization has crawled to the top of the branch, and it's now dead and clinging on, and a fruiting body is sprouting from its skull, and we're just waiting for the bird to swoop by. And that's obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but that's in reference to the cordyceps fungus, which will infect an ant. The ant will lose its mind, get a powerful urge to climb everything, get as high and far off the ground as possible. It will do that and then die. And it does this so that the cordyceps fungus can extend a fruiting body out of its skull, which looks a little bit like a worm or a flower or something, to attract a bird to eat the ant and the fungus and continue its life cycle. Standard parasitic life cycle. The spores go on the bird poops, ants eat the poop, they turn into cordyceps, rinse, repeat. Standard issue, nature is hell type shit. And that's my analogy for what's happened to America. We used to have a government. I don't know exactly when it started to die. That's debatable, I guess. But it certainly was completely dead by the time of Reagan's victory. It's like literally the corporations hired an actor, and his entire tenure was about dismantling and murdering off what was left of government. All government services were, the whole idea was privatize everything, deregulate everything. And I go there because the guy that was like defending the Gigacorps was doing so from a libertarian perspective. And that annoys me too, because I was that way for a long time. Like I was a left libertarian. Basically, I believed in a kind of, Chomsky anarcho-syndicalism kind of thing, which really is bullshit. You have to have a government because there are natural monopolies like radio frequency allocation, national highway system, postal, stuff like that. Everything that's too big to fail needs to be nationalized. And there are those systems are inherently, naturally, best served as centralized things. You can't just do them organically ad hoc and piecemeal. So I do, and there's also the concept of tragedy of the commons, and you need a central structure to respond quickly to immediate threats, like an asteroid's been detected. It's going to wipe out the eastern seaboard. We have 2 weeks to adapt. That kind of thing needs speed. And you can't do speed by committee. You can't do speed by the invisible hand of the market. You there's lots of situations that you can come up with and that need a government. And by government I mean the organizing principle that represents the will of the masses, the collective good of humanity. So when people are against that, for libertarian reasons, and it's big fat air quotes, because almost all that ideology comes from Edward Bernays, Ayn Rand, and corporations expressly manipulating people to believe things in such a way that they will attack the systems that might actually pose a threat to those corporations and their exponential gains for profit. It's like lobbying, special interests, banking, the Federal Reserve Act being snuck in on a Christmas Eve, all that type of crap. And basically it has culminated in the American state being erased. It's no longer a state. It's corporations in a trench coat. And when people internalize those ideas, like when they when the talking points become their belief system, they can become, and this is just general human nature. People are fact proof. You can't debate them. And this stuff is really complicated. I can't give an education in a debate. You have to have already been interested in this stuff. You have to have already been primed for it and read it and stuff. So then the issue becomes, well, what do I do about it, if anything, right? And I've essentially decided to just back off, because my first instinct was, I knew how I could restore order. I've kicked people before when Poe wasn't as disgusting, and when my regard for playing it wasn't as wounded. I was able to just purge disruptive elements and preserve the value to me of my guild, and it's mine, so fuck it. I am the primary consideration of my guild. But that's kind of changing, because like I said, what happens to my it's like, put it in the larger context of quitting smoking. These are my smoking buddies, right? This is my smoking room, and it's a bunch of people that are presumably not going to quit with me, and I'm not going to try and make them quit, right? I'm not going to proselytize, and I'm also unsure of my future emotional state. I'm not going to commit to something like give away my guild again, which I have done in the past and had to get it back, rage quit sort of situations that didn't feel like rage quit at the time. They felt very real and permanent, but I've learned I can't trust those feelings. So I haven't done anything like that. I didn't kick anybody. I didn't leave. I didn't take any actions as a founder or as a Discord owner at all. I just basically closed the tabs and turned it off on my phone so that I don't see it. And I haven't logged into Poe in a couple days. And basically everybody has a way to reach me by email or some other means. So it's not like I'm incommunicado. It's just like an inbox that I'm choosing not to check. Because that argument, since it can't be had, like I said, I can't educate in an argument. I can at best make nice talking points, but the history of war and diplomacy and debate and religion, all that just shows that you can't convince people. People they have windows of being convinced, and they usually occur in childhood. So it's like, I'm way, way, way too late to wake up that target guy. But also I'm too late to further wake up other people who are partially aligned, but not completely aligned with that openness that I was talking about, or that context that's required. So he was getting basically some traction in third parties. They would kind of chime in and be like, oh, he's right about this. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to go down this road. I don't want to start, a schism. I don't want drama with people that I am uncomfortable kicking, you know. But more than that, on top of that, as an additional layer, a deeper layer, it's like, do I even want to preserve this? Like, it's like the cat peeing on the cigarettes. Maybe it's better that the guild room is now a little uncomfortable for me. You know, maybe I need to embrace that so that it drives me further away organically, because it's like, I don't want to just quit cold turkey. I don't want to email GGG and say ban my account, you know, which some people have done because they've got a genuine gambling problem and they notice it and they've spent too much on loot crates, which is a whole other thing. Pay to win applies to in-game currency, in my opinion, you know, because time is money. Every game is pay to win. So we'll just put that there, and everything's dopamine. It's all information. It's all abstractions and pleasure circuits and rewards and punishments. It's all the same. We're all Skinners. You know, it's all pigeon superstition. So that's a thing. But so I'm in the middle of this. I'm in the middle of it happening, and how I respond to things often is I'll intellectualize them openly. Rather than participate in an argument, I will often openly analyze the argument as if I'm a third party. It's a way to create distance for myself, I guess, and create an emotional cushion, you know, a buffer. It's how I stay calm in situations where, you know, being calm is an asset when everybody else is heated. Like that's often been the case. Like I come across on these videos as like an animated, loud kind of guy, but in real life emergency situations, I'm almost always the coolest head. Like that's happened a number of times. Like, you know, somebody gets injured or there's an emergency or whatever. It's like, I'm always the guy I'm always running point on the emergency. You know, I'm the dude that makes the 911 call. I'm the dude that talks to the cops, that kind of thing. And that's because, you know, autism, to an extent, you know, you're able to maintain this kind of intellectual distance, you know, this emotional tamping down. It comes back later. You know, I'll be upset later. Like, I'm a sprinter, not a marathon runner. Excuse me. But so I'm while it's happening, I'm talking about it. I'm like, okay, I'm debating kicking you, man. You know, it's like, because I know there's no point to, like, I can't wake you up, right? So it's like it gets into the tolerance of intolerance thing. Because as a right wing libertarian, he can be pretty, you know, I don't know how to put it. I want to say right wing, right? But that's not it anymore, because now we have neo-libs and BlackRock. It's basically two versions of right wing. But he is like an invisible hand capitalist corporatist, basically. And I didn't know that initially, right? I don't like, there are people too. They can be nice too, and it's like anybody else. It's like you can be friends with a cop. It's like, so long as the cop likes you, they aren't going to shoot your dog like they do during their day job, right? It's like you can be around a monster and be on good terms with a monster. So I'm like thinking about it out loud. It's like, okay, what do I do? It's like, I don't want to just kick you, right? It's not about like ego where, you know, I'm afraid of looking like a tyrant or something. Like I said, I'm happy to stipulate that I'm Satan. I'm willing to be the bad guy. That's not my point. My problem is consequentialism. It's like, what happens if I just let you stay here? It's like, first of all, the place is going to be permanently a little less comfortable for me because I know you'll be right there. Like, I'll say something else in the future about some corporation being a dick, and I'll imagine or even see what you're going to think about how the little guy is wrong and the corporation is right, and we should defend corporate rights, basically. You know, it's like all those talking points that I was talking about, invented by corporations. He's just a petri dish of them, right? And so ethically and functionally, practically speaking, what should I do? You know, it's like, and I feel like I know I should just purge and clean and everything in the room to make it better for me. But like I said, there's that other layer. It's like, do I want this place to be comfortable? It's like, or do I want to let it wither on the vine without me, so that I'm not having to tell the smokers to quit smoking. I'm just quitting myself. I'm not locking the door to the break room. I'm just not going in anymore, right? Uh, like, and this also leaves the door open for me to return. Like if things change or, I feel differently, some future event I can't predict, Black Swan event, whatever, maybe I'll come back. But as of right now, I'm pretty committed to not playing Poe, like at least today. It's like kind of like addiction, just get through the next hour, get through the next day, get through the next week kind of thing. Now I'm having to do that anyway because of anxiety and depression. I really don't feel like I have any kind of future. I'm pretty much just waiting for the next disaster. Those disasters are housing failure, pet injury, sickness, death, family injury, sickness, death, injury, sickness, death in me, social unrest, whatever. So I'm really just waiting for the next disaster. Because, insert post-mortem of America here. Like, it's fucked up out there. And I'm in one of the poorest countries, or one of the poorest states in the country. Not, it's an okay region in a really bad larger region, right? So, and that's another thing too. It's when you don't have anything but your addiction. And usually what that happens because of the addiction, like, a raging heroin addict will lose everything in their life to the heroin addiction. That's not the case for me. I basically just lost everything else by attrition for other reasons, but now I'm left with basically just my internet connection, making videos, YouTube, the internet. I basically have the internet, my one game, and this goes back way to what I was talking about before. It's like it's hard to walk away from Poe it's hard to replace Poe with a game that doesn't have that deep, real social component. There are not other cooperative multiplayer games that I want to get into. And so thinking about a replacement, looking for something to do, working that out, thinking that through is part of what this video is about. It's like talking to myself, learning through teaching, even though there's no student. It's like giving a class to an empty chair. That's pretty much what these videos often are. I'm explaining it to no one in particular. Probably literally no one. I mean, the stats in my page are funny. It's like a bunch of zeros, right? Uh, so I'm trying to work out what to do. And right now, like, I try to remember to be comfortable with not knowing. Like, I don't need an immediate answer. I'm okay with suspending judgment until I have more data. So basically, that's what's happening. I'm waiting for more data. But I'm really not interested in any data coming from that particular channel. So that's why I'm like, whatever, you know. And that Discord is like 90% of, not even, it's 100% of my, not 100, 99% of my reason for even having Discord. I mean, it is the reason I even have Discord, but like to continue using it, it's not like I participate in other game communities or really do anything on Discord other than Poe. Like, I've got memberships and things where I occasionally needed to make a bug report in like little games like Star Survivor or whatever, and communities like with local language models and stuff like that. They'll have a little Discord, and I'll go in there and make my comment or whatever. So I've got that. I've got stuff on the left hand side, and I've people have been like, "Can I message you?" And it's like, okay. So it's an account. It's got links and stuff, but the elephant in the room is the excuse me, the game. The Poe Guild Discord. So I'm not gonna log into Poe today, as far as I know. 1:35. We'll see how it goes. PM. So what now, you know? It's one of the, it's like going back to the shallower layer. Like, should I ban him? You know, I think about, like, one of the reasons I didn't was because I can't give all that context in an instant, which means that no one watching or seeing the log would have it. So some people were parsing it as drama that they felt the need to try and cancel, you know, to break up a fight, so to speak. I'm like, it's not a fight. It's like I'm in complete control here. If it was a fight and I was actually angry, you know, it's like you're in a bar, right? And you're having a disagreement with the owner, and he's got his bouncers flanking him. Like, he's not upset. You can tell he's upset when the bouncers have thrown you out of the building, right? That's when you know he's upset. It's like, I didn't do that, right? So I'm just like, yeah, vexed, I guess. But it's also, like I was saying, it's an opportunity. So I was I didn't want to, I mean, I don't want to give a false impression, because there is definitely because like I said, this is a real issue. Like, dealing with the capitalist capture of America, it's a really pivotal moment in history, and how these people react to future movements or situations or opportunities may in part be influenced by these events, you know. So I don't want to give them a negative impression of people who talk like me. It's like, don't use me as your, you know, judge of what the movements I may be in favor of. It's like Fred Hampton, you know, don't have leaders. Just focus on the movement. And but the reality is, in that situation, the very structure of the room, you know, Discord won't let you have a headless room, right? It's like MIRC and Reddit. Reddit will literally close your group if it doesn't have moderators. And MIRC, you know, Downnet would ban you if you didn't have operators. You know, so these places force a hierarchy, and I am forced to be king in that little room, right? And I don't want it to just default into sectarian violence in that context. You know, that's a strong phrasing, but it's just what comes to mind. It's like, imagine if I gave different people ops and there was a schism, you know. And also, another factor was, like, the room had been silent for days and days prior to this. So it's like, it's kind of like the whole, you know, no news is good news versus no such thing as bad publicity. You know, it's like, which is better? Some drama, you know, or a lot of silence? So I don't know. Like, I wasn't in a real hurry to return the room to silence. Like, that's messed up. But the main thing that Poe did for me is that it really helped me forget. Like, I could get really involved and focused and forget the reality of the situation that I'm in. You know, the waiting room for horror, the super muted version of Death Row, you know, where I'm just like, something shitty's coming. Really just a matter of time. I have very little hope for something good coming. Like, the good that comes is stuff I'm making. Like, I'll eventually have a coffee. You know, I'll eventually be tired enough to sleep in my bed, and it'll be relatively warm and comfortable. So, and you know, being distracted from that to the point to where I forget, to where, you know, when I get a message and it's like, oh, right, reality's a thing. You know, it's like, I'm glad I had forgotten for a little while. But I just don't imagine getting that option again. Like, I would never just go start playing Poe, right? Now, I was a completely different person 10 years ago. The world was radically different 10 years ago. And I'm nostalgic about aspects of it, but I have no illusions. I was very unhappy then too, and 10 years before that I was unhappy. I've never really been happy. Even as a kid when everything was excellent, I had school looming over me. So like then the distractions were toys and Christmas and going outside to play. You forget that because you're a kid, you're able to really forget that I'm a slave. I'm going to have to go to school tomorrow. I have no choices, no agency, no rights. I'm basically meat because my owners are kind. I had really amazing parents, have really amazing parents. And, could be worse. I'm very lucky. I realize that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But just the fact is, you're able to forget these horrors of these existential dreads, grim meat hook realities. And I'm all I know how to do is log in and forget, and all the answers, the traditional answers, seek therapy or whatever, done that, meds and everything, didn't help shit. Get a hobby. Well, hobbies cost money. It's like you don't understand the context I live in. You don't understand the house I live in. It's like a lot of that stuff's just not an option for me. As far as I can tell, none of it's an option for me. And I've explored what I can explore privately. And having to do stuff privately as opposed to publicly is part of the problem, and there's context I can't provide. So, but with the advent of AI, I can actually not fully, but much more deeply explore ideas. And it's one of the things about local language models that fascinate me. It's like, oh, I can talk about safety. You can really talk to these things. Say literally whatever you want, and it'll say novel, insane things in response. But that's good because it's like when you're brainstorming, you want that craziness, all directions, hell. It's just total alien responses are good because there's grains of path in there. You can find a. It's like, oh, I never thought about that way. Maybe that will lead to. Excuse me. But even the machines, man, are kind of at a loss. I'll make a statement, ask a question, elaborate on a problem. They'll give a solution. I'll say why that solution is invalid. And it's kind of like similar to therapy in that, they ask you how you're feeling. They ask you why. They ask you about your problems. You tell your problems. And eventually they offer a solution. And you're like, I can't do that because here. And then they'll go, oh, shit. Yeah, I guess not. I can see now, and you arrive at this same spot. Well, do what you're doing. I mean, it's like when you're already at best practice in the context, but it doesn't look like that from outside, it's a shitty situation to be in, and that's pretty much where I am. So I guess I'm just coping, right? What can I possibly do? It's so funny how people are so keen to give like really superficial advice. Like you never thought of that. They'll say stuff like exercise, go outside. Like, guys, I'm not a moron. That ran across my mind too. And it turns out I kind of do some of that stuff, and you're just like thinking it's a panacea, and it's not. I think about nihilism and how nothing beautiful is real. Take a glorious photograph of the sunset, it's a lie. you don't know what the temperature is. It's probably a little too cold for you, maybe a little too hot for you. Uh, Depending on where you're standing, the ground could be lethal. All kinds of stuff like that. And it wouldn't look like that to your human eye if you were standing there. This is the result of filters and framing and focal angle and all this other stuff. And that's art, that's music, you know, even food, it's like what is originally flesh and seeds and grain and stuff. We cook and shape and sculpt until it looks better. And it's like, well, that betterness is the lie. And that's hard for me to deal with. I've always had a problem with lies. I'm not sure what the deal is with that. Maybe I just really failed at it early and never developed an affinity for it. I don't know. It doesn't matter now. It's the stuff just disgusts me. And just so frustrated with people. They're so unreachable. And they reward all the wrong things. They want to be abused so fucking bad. It's hard to deal with. It's real hard to deal with, especially gamers. Oh, talk about people that man, they are all about defending the system, defend the status quo, defend the developer, defend just how it is. And man, the one place a reformer does not want to be is in a game community. And that's another reason why I'm having a hard time replacing Poe, because I know it'll just be another game community. Granted, I may be able to play it offline, but I'm going to have problems. I'm going to have questions. It's going to be like Planetary Annihilation, where I got so involved that the developer started commenting hate on all my posts. I mean, that's a story, man. It's like, I have a gift, it's like I create stuff where I go, like the guild, and I've always done that, always made communities, because I quickly learned that if I didn't make a place, I wouldn't have a place, because I get kicked out. I like fighting for things. I like speaking up. I'm never kicked out for being a troll. It's not like I go in and hurl a bunch of racial slurs and just shit up the area. That's not why I'm getting kicked out of places. I'm like an investigative journalist that people don't want to have around. It's like, dude, I'm not here for truth. And I can sympathize, because like I said, I'm here to escape, right? So I try to respect that as much as possible, but at the same time, I am what I am. And I apparently have nothing to offer humanity that it wants. I mean, I've looked for my niche and my place my whole life, tried to help, tried to find somewhere that could make use of me, that wasn't humiliating, that wasn't hideously painful or dangerous, and wasn't evil. Good fucking luck. Nothing checks those 3 boxes. So I'm basically just waiting. It's kind of like with like my life is kind of like with the guild Discord. It's like, I'm not doing anything dramatic. I'm not going to fucking shoot myself or something. Like, but I have checked out. I'm just like, I don't want on this planet anymore. So I'm just waiting for my ride off, whatever form that takes. But, I am also a hedonist and a consequentialist. I do want to help if at all possible. I feel like it's a moral urgency. And also, joy and pain are still immediate axiomatic valuable things. Like, I don't want to suffer. I don't want to cause suffering, and I want to feel pleasant emotions whenever possible. We're all dopamine chasers and cortisol avoiders. So it's funny. It's like the primary means of reform in a game community is take it or leave it. You can boycott or you can fuck off. I mean, really, that's your choice. Uh, and life is that way too. You know, life is all gambling. You know, you gamble on a career, you gamble on, like, let's say I'm a geneticist and I have an experiment I want to do. I can spend 20 years on that experiment trying to prove a theory. That's a gamble. You know, and that's the essence of a career, is a gamble. Going for a jog is a gamble. You're assuming, you're gambling on whether or not you're going to be alive tomorrow. Because, like, just breathing is a gamble. So everything is gambling. So I might as well just play poker, right? I don't have any money to start with now. I did back in the day, but, you know, America, I lost all my money. And you don't get any credit for avoiding stuff. Like, I never got swallowed up by any of the negative communities. You know, I never became an addict. I never fathered children too early. None, I didn't make any of those massive pit hole mistakes that like trap people. I've managed to navigate the minefield, but you don't get any kind of social credit for that. And we could discuss why. You know, it's mostly conspiratorial, but like, society will totally reward you for beating addiction, but it really doesn't care if you simply avoid one. You know, it's like, if you just said no, then that's default. Well, you were supposed to have that. It's kind of like the thing in school. It's like, you put in your very best, you get an A. You put in that same level of effort next week, it'll be a C, because that's your new average. You know, it's like classic work thing. It's like, hard workers are rewarded with more work. So don't. The idea is shoot for C's, and that's what I'm doing, laying flat in the Chinese context. It's like, I'm done. I'm not picking up a rifle, but I'm not helping either. You know. So hopefully this discussion will sink into my back brain, because hearing it is different than thinking it. It's a different region in the brain. You know. Also, sculpting your thoughts into a chain of words helps you parse them better. Like, it really is a good idea to keep a journal or do videos like this to better understand your position. You know, teaching something, even if it's your opinion, you learn. And so, yeah, hopefully this video will have done something for me. And maybe even you, if somebody actually watched to this point.